Good morning from Zurich. You're listening to Monocle on Sunday with me, Tyler Brûlé. Coming up on today's program, we have Juliet Linley here. Myriam Zumbühl is also here, but we're going to start with you, Juliet, because you know how the drill works. Highlighters are out again. Lots of A4 paper, Financial Times. What do you want to start with this morning? Good morning, by the way. Buongiorno.
Buongiorno, good morning. We're not speaking Portuguese this morning, but the Financial Times will come at the end, and we will talk about the sins of Italian cookery that some chefs are committing, like using chicken on their penne, for instance. But more seriously,
is that a sin, really?
For Italians, it is definitely. Okay. They're like putting carrots in sugo. You just not.
Okay, not.
And then I would really like to look at Sebastião Salgado again. And we had a bit of a homage paid to him yesterday, but also looking at those who criticized him, saying as if aesthetics de facto is the enemy of ethics and whether he is guilty of aestheticizing misery.
Okay, we'll be talking about that a little bit later. Also, we're going to be heading to the Balkans for the latest from there.
Albania roars to the head of the EU queue, and legal bother over Belgrade-bombed buildings puts Trump project in peril. Coming up on a roundup from the Balkans with me, Guy De Launey.
Plus, we celebrate the very rare event of shops being open on a Sunday here in Switzerland. It is the 25th of May, 2025, live from Zurich. This is Monocle on Sunday.
Live from Zurich, this is Monocle on Sunday with Tyler Brûlé.
Good morning from a rather grey, dull Zurich as we head to the end of this month of May. But it's not dull in studio here because Juliet Linley is here. Also, Myriam Zumbühl is back. Very nice to see you. It's been ages.
It's been a while.
You were here at the, of course, for the market. You had a little bit of a preview moment. For those who didn't tune in yesterday, what did people miss? What was happening here?
Well, there was very good croquetas, very good Portuguese food. I bought a wonderful olive oil.
Fundamento.
And I was intrigued by the bags. I forgot the brand. There was beautifully woven
These woven
bags.
like straw bags. Yes.
Yeah. No, it was. I have to say, I've never been to Portugal. Shame on me.
Ever, like in all of your travels.
No, I mean I crossed the country, but I've never actually spent time in the country. And I was intrigued, and I'm still laughing about. I had no idea that the Portuguese have a relationship to the Spanish, almost like the Swiss with the Germans. We Swiss think that the Germans are sometimes maybe a little bit loud. I had no idea that Portugal is going through the same trauma.
No, as I said, you just need to wind the Portuguese up. Give them, one or two port tonics, and away they go. Juliet, good morning. You sort of lived Portugal. Have you been to Portugal before?
I have on many occasions.
Okay, good.
Yes, good. And I will take Myriam next time I go.
Okay, good.
I feel like we could do a food trip.
Oh yes, I'm in.
Right?
Mm-hmm. I'm in.
I mean, croquetas would have been the bolinhos, the bacalhau, the like fish. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
Or to the one stuffed with pork? They were like two different.
Oh well, I had
fried.
both.
There you go. Which did you prefer?
The pork was flavor-wise. I enjoyed it a lot more. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Succulent. Yeah.
Why don't we head across? I guess let's head westbound. We're heading to Norfolk right now. Unusual territory for us. Sophie Grove is there. Sophie Grove, editor-in-chief of Confect. Good morning.
Good morning. It's a very sunny morning here in Norfolk, and I'm looking out at the North Sea, shimmering, in fact.
Is it beckoning as well? Or have you already had a morning dip, Sophie?
No, it's beckoning. It's really it's looking choppy. It's sort of it's almost Californian scene for Norfolk, but I will be submerging in the sort of slightly grey waters shortly. But I thought I'd talk to you all first.
Excellent. Sophie, this is I was waiting on Friday. I was hoping that the delivery truck or aircraft would arrive from Germany with our summer issue of Confect, but no such touchdown. I'm going to miss it because, as I said, I'm heading to Japan, but hopefully it'll catch up with me in our travels. We should be hitting letterboxes next week, newsstand the week after, but the magazine is inbound. Maybe just give us a little bit of a highlight, just of what's in store.
Well, it's a real ode to summer. It's a wonderful it's a really, I think, essentially we've captured the Med at this wonderful peak moment. So we're really, our hotel guide is sweeping. We're in Lisbon. We're in in fact, Myriam went to a lovely place in Italy called La Foelia. We're sort of on the coast in Saint-Tropez looking at a new brand for fashion. So there's a sense of style in summer, but also escapes, long reads for your lounger. And also discovery. There's a great train journey in there too.
And so if we just, when you talk about Med, I think we've also gone, we've gone definitely southeast Med as well, even a little bit down the Nile, new territory for us. Cairo features rather large as well.
I know, and Cairo, I mean, I haven't really sat at a dinner table for the last couple of months without somebody telling me about an amazing trip they've had to Cairo. So there's a real sense that Cairo is sort of back, but we sent a team headed up by Marcella Palak, our style director, to capture some of the season's best looks on the Nile. But it's amazing that Cairo's having this moment. I mean, I've been there many times, but really a decade ago. And I think that they've really found a sense of aesthetic, a sense of Egyptian elegance, certainly with our location, which is this apartment block, Immobilia, which was one of the first, in fact, the first skyscraper Art Deco era to be built in the city. And it really captures that sense of glamour. And Omar Sharif used to live there. But I think there's an amazing brand beyond Cairo that has restored this property and many others, one in Luxor too, bringing that sense of real glamour, sort of 30s era decadence and antiques and beautiful textures back to the city. And it's a real celebration of Egyptian style too.
I just want to bring Myriam in here. You went to Italy and did a little bit of a tour and reportage for us. Tell us about the property.
Yeah, so I went to La Follia, which is basically, I mean, it's pretty bonkers to think about it. Those people who built it, they built 2 little villas, and one villa was basically just their reading room. They felt like, oh, wouldn't it be nice to have like a little villa where we can just go and read the papers and read books? So it's these.
And what era are we talking about?
So it's called the Revislante. It's basically just across the border. If you're in the Ticino, in the Italian part of Switzerland, it's just I don't know, half an hour by car. It's beautiful. It's surrounded by old trees. And so it's this private estate. There is a private chef on site that cooks wonderful pasta that even you would agree. He doesn't mix pasta with chicken. No, he doesn't do that. But what I loved most is just the sense of serenity, and you're engulfed by nature. And it is so I have a hard time really relaxing when I'm on a holiday. It took me like 5 minutes to just slow down. And there is a pond. I forgot there is a pond with, small little ducks, and you can have
rowboats. I saw pictures of
yes.
you.
So what I did is first thing in the morning.
Then you have the ducks on pasta.
No, but they wake you up in the morning. You hear them, you hear their chatter in the morning. Go like, oh, maybe it's time to get up. But there is a rowing boat. So in my pajamas, the first thing I did is, went in the rowing boat and went to the other side to read my newspaper. That's what I did. It's lovely. And it's also the 2 owners are too young. They're not hoteliers per se, but they just have a great sense of style, but also they have an idea, what is it that we need or that we want when we just want to go on a holiday with friends, and there is an outdoor hot pool and a sauna. That's why they play chess and have a little apero. It's perfect. It's wonderful.
So go ahead, Juliet.
I have 2 questions.
Yeah.
One, what epoch are we talking? When did they build this one villa just for reading in? What a dream that would be.
Oh my God, now you ask me.
Okay.
It's
quite modern.
It's quite modern.
Okay.
Yes, it's quite modern.
My second point is, you mentioned ducks. No, you can have anatra ragu. Like, you can have a ragu made of duck.
Yes.
Absolutely. But just poultry and pasta in general, no. Like, the Americans are like, can I have some grilled chicken on my spaghetti? It's like, no. What do you mean? No.
But we know about spaghetti poulet, though, as well.
Who does
Adrien always talks about his spaghetti poulet.
Does he?
Yeah, we've had this conversation on this. Maybe you've not been
Did he air
on air.
fry it, maybe?
There's no air frying involved, but
Julie,
that's another topic.
But I have a question. I can have chicken next to what? Vegetables, or what can I have it with?
Potatoes.
Or just the chicken? Okay.
Not even rice. Like, I do rice and chicken, and my husband's like, no, come on. Like, it's very South American to stick the rice together with the chicken, or very Asian.
Sophie, do you want to weigh in on this topic?
All right.
I agree. I'm poultry free when it comes to pasta, but I feel like maybe we can derail from the magazine review by this contentious point. I should say, actually, Myriam also did an amazing Swiss recipe story for the magazine. High summer alpine food grilled on this incredible fire by Rebecca Klopath, who's a real rising star of the Swiss food scene. So she can maybe, which is one of my favorite pieces in the issue.
And what was she cooking up for us, Myriam?
No chicken. So Rebecca Kloppard is a so-called, we call it natuurköchin, like a nature cook, which means that she only works with whatever nature provides her. Also, in the area. So let's say she actually does use yuzu, but those who grow in Switzerland. So she really makes the most of what nature gives her. And then also her family owns an organic farm. So she only cooks.
She's got it easy.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that she's got it easy. She just has whatever she needs with her, which she also needs because she's way up in a little village called Lond, somewhere in the Graubünden mountains. Like it's not easy for her to, she doesn't really have easy access to produce. But what I love most is just how she works with what she has. She's very happy with that, and also the way she creates. So she made a sugo. Italians don't listen to us. She makes a sugo that is miso based, but it still has this wonderful flavor. She just thinks about how can I recreate an aroma using just different produce. That was a lovely day. Sunny out there. She cooks over fire pretty much all the time, which adds another layer of flavor. And she's just a wonderful, wonderful person.
Juliet, how are you feeling about the miso?
I'm curious. What did she mix the miso with? Was it a meat sauce or was it a seaweed? But this is local Engadine miso, of course.
No. So it's Graubünden. It's more like Ilanz, that way.
She grows her miso.
So, she did. It's kind of like an Italian-inspired pasta dish. I don't want to make you mad Sunday morning. but it's a beautiful miso pasta that she did. Yes. So instead of
vegetables.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Do we want to solve this carrots and sugo?
No,
because we could probably go through the rest of it.
I have a question.
You can't
45 minutes of the program.
You can't put the carrot with the onion to do the sofrito before you put the tomatoes.
Okay.
Yes.
But there is no pasta alla carota. Like, you can't just order a carrot sauce. That's what I mean.
Oh, no.
See?
No.
You're all up in arms.
No, but I think the way you set it up at the start of the program sounded like you couldn't have it.
In a thick ragu, you would put a carrot.
Okay,
but you have you wouldn't order that.
Sophie, Myriam, are you feeling better about it now? Because I know
I am like the Holy Trinity. This is really basic stuff, but I think people need to be reminded of the La Carota is never going to appear on any menu. Thank God.
But maybe at the top of the Graubünden mountain, it might if she grows carrots.
Maybe she's breaking
she actually
rules.
used onions. So for her, the onion is the one flavor-wise. There's so much in an onion that you can do. You don't even need carrots.
Yeah, skip the carrots.
Okay, listen. Why? Go ahead, Sophie.
She has poets. She has Swiss poets reading to people as they eat. It's a very eccentric scene, you can imagine.
Yeah, quite. Actually, just in terms of not quite eccentric scenes as well. You left out one part of the story as well. We don't want to give the whole issue away. But of course, we were also down in Napoli as well, having a geopolitical conversation about the Med. That also features large in the issue as well.
We were in this amazing yacht club, sort of turn of the century, wonderful scene, but talking some quite tough and interesting geopolitical issues. It's kind of blue power. It's, it's trade routes, it's piracy. It's a lot of kind of high seas sort of daring do, a real drill down into some of the geopolitical issues happening. So that's for your lounger too, Tyler.
Okay, good. Listen, why don't we start, Sophie? We'll come back to you in a second, but why don't we look at the papers? Myriam, maybe start with you. What's caught your eye? I think I'm from here. I don't have my glasses on. Are you in the NZZ this morning? Where are we starting?
I am. So I have one short story. So today, the 20 best city hotels. There is the 150 best hotels of Switzerland is in the NZZ am Sonntag today, and so the best city hotels. And I disagree with that. So the best city hotel of Switzerland is the Dol Grand in Zurich, still ranking 1 like last year. Yeah,
you're fine with that or no?
No.
No, you're not happy with that. Okay.
No.
Why?
I would. Well, let me put it this way. I made wonderful experiences at the Borolak.
Right.
And even as a resident, so I go there as somebody that lives in Zurich. I go there for coffee and just the way that they treat me. And just the other day, I had a breakfast there. In like early morning breakfast, but they were so lovely and they were so attentive, and I never feel like I do not belong there, and that's what I love, So for me, the Borolak would be number 1. Also,
where are they on this ranking though?
3rd, and then on 5th is the Woodward, which I wrote about for for a publication coming up in the Monocle
Yes.
universe. I think that again, I would put them a little further up.
Okay. Yeah. And then give us the full ranking. So we've got the Dolder #1 City Hotel.
Dolder number 1.
2,
and then we have the Trois Rois in Basel, which I agree, this is very good. Yeah. Then we have Borolac on 3rd, and then 4th is the Mandarin Oriental Savoy in Zurich.
No.
That's a no.
That's
right?
a no, definitely.
I had my best friend's husband, so I recommended it to them, and he came here also for work. He called me after 5 minutes and said, "They don't even have a desk." So he had.
Yeah, no.
So that maybe.
That's it. This is a sort of a project which suffered from too much budget, right?
Maybe, yes. I don't know what it is. There is something not quite right yet, but I see that they're doing lots of rebuilding stuff within the building. I think there's going to be a terrace. Who knows what's going to happen there in the future?
No, true. So, and the number 5 then you said takes us to Geneva, right? And that is
the Woodward in Geneva, yes.
which is Utker Hotels.
It's an Utker collection hotel. Yes. Oh no,
Thanks
actually
to frozen pizzas.
Anymore. No. Yeah, but that's a different division. No,
I know it is, but
I think I think they switched. They're no longer part of the Utker collection. Is it called Auberge something?
Okay, I don't know. So they started there anyway.
But still,
okay,
that's where
like
they started.
News.
And I have to say, the reason why I go there is, so I'm a fan, like with the croissant, you can lure me into a house and into a hotel with a good croissant. I have never had a croissant as good as at the Woodward. And when you order the bread basket for breakfast, it's insane, I tell you. It's an étagère filled brioches, and everything is made with these laminated dough. And it's
Sophie,
fantastic.
are you getting that in Norfolk this morning?
Well, I don't know if it's quite on the Norfolk coast. I don't think that the croissants are world renowned, but there's some very good ingredients.
You could look across the channel longingly, see what they're having in Belgium and France this morning. Juliet, where do you want to go?
Well, no croissants here. Story-wise,
no.
I would like.
There are croissants. You can have Gipfeli out front. Come on, but I don't want you eating on air.
I actually never had a Gipfeli here.
Okay, you can have one when we get off air.
Yeah. We get a free one.
Yeah.
But speaking of did you see this collection I have in front of me? This is Myriam, who's been baking all weekend. She brought them in for a sampling of gluten-free
Always
biscuits.
great on radio.
Yeah.
People tasting food.
Yum, tasty. Anyway, we're going to do that later because our valiant producer, Desiree Bundley, is gluten-free. And so Myriam thought she deserved to try either coconut flour or brown rice and miso flour and all of that fun stuff that I know you love.
Yeah, so it's all gluten-free.
It's all gluten-free. It's quite an adventure, I tell you. I'm pretty exhausted. I'm exhausted.
It's been a safari.
I'm already exhausted. But anyway, Juliet, what do you have?
Well,
what
Repubblica today.
Yes.
Having paid, as we said, there were so many tributes over the last 24 hours for the death of the giant of photography, the Brazilian Sebastião Salgado. And I love how the French are calling him Franco-Brazilian, simply because it's a bit like everyone wants to claim
if they can claim it, right?
A bit like calling the American Pope. He's actually very Peruvian. And the Repubblica is looking at the accusations that were also launched at him over the years of having sort of exploited the suffering of people. Now, Sebastião Salgado, for those who don't know him, purely worked in black and white. He picked up a camera at the age of 26, having trained as an economist. He moved to Paris in the late 60s during Brazil's military regime. But he started off as a reporting photographer. So he covered wars, famines, all the ugliness of our planet, if you want. And it was actually after his reporting, he did the famine in Sahel and then Rwanda. And it was with this genocide that he says that he just broke down. And what he did was he then moved to where he had grown up, which was the Atlantic rainforest in Brazil, to sort of rest and recuperate. However, the land that he had grown up with that was lush vegetation had been, by his own family, turned into cattle farms. Therefore, the trees had been decimated to make way for the cattle. And therefore, what he thought he was going back to which would have been a calming, lush vegetation, was actually dry, decimated land. And it's at that point where he decided he wanted to, big project, to reforest the Amazon, not the Amazon, the rainforest, the Atlantic rainforest. So he then stopped doing journalism and focused on the beauties of nature, as doing forests, but also he looked at the workers. He's had a lot of exhibitions that look at the extreme beauty of nature, but also the extreme harshness of exploited workers, let's say in South America.
So, and you were in Brazil last year.
I visited. He created this Instituto Terra together with the funding of a well-known insurance company whose name we shall not mention, but it is based in Zurich and has the same name. And it is aimed at reforesting, but it's tree by tree. I thought you go there, you sprinkle some seeds, and a forest will grow. They have to create.
Myriam shaking her head. I'm sure Sophie shaking her head doesn't work.
You all knew that. So when I visited it, you see the magnitude of this project that he wanted to be his legacy. So to say that he exploited suffering, those words hurt him. But he said, beauty is not the prerogative of the beautiful people of the Northern Hemisphere. He felt very much that he grew up in the Southern Hemisphere. He represented the poorer side of the world, and therefore he was the one who brought those aspects to the Western world. So his legacy will live on. He is the Instituto is carrying on the job of reforesting. His photos and his exhibitions and his books are just magnificent. Let's see how soon we will no longer need to reforest, because the forest will no longer be decimated.
Okay, here's a question. Sophie, I want to bring you in on this. Have we come to, and there's a lot of conversation yesterday just at the market, talking to various people about just the world of editorial, and I got on, landed on the topic of photography with a couple of people, and maybe it was a little bit obviously off the back of the death of Salgado. Are we at the end of the grand reportage? Are we going to, and can we even think of grand reportage photographers today who get the expanse editorially, who get the pages in magazines? And I guess the question is also, in a world of media, looking at my phone here, can you present great reportage on something as small as a mobile device? When you use the word grand reportage as well, and I want to bring you in on the topic maybe just to start.
Well, it's interesting.
Oh, sorry. Sophie, go ahead. No, you jump in.
Sorry, I thought it was me.
No, that's fine.
No, it's very interesting, because when we send photographers and throughout the kind of making of this issue of Conflict, it's remarkable how many people are surprised that we've sent people. They'd show up. They're often shooting on film. They have assistants. And I think just the surprise on people's faces when this team arrives is a reflection of the industry, because they aren't actually used to that kind of commitment to photographic kind of prowess. And I think that is in a sense a sad moment for us, even though we are pushing against that trend, to see how we are kind of really in a small company at the moment in publishing, certainly even shooting on film.
No, absolutely. And I was just on that as well. So I was just thinking back to, you were talking about our story out of Naples, and you were talking about piracy. And I know we've touched on this before, and you talked about sort of people out on the Great Blue Sea and the daring do. And it's amazing when you see, and you just think back of images, and you think back at a great layout. And I remember when you were chasing pirates with the Danish Navy off the coast of Somalia as well. And that type of reportage, it's very rare that it gets space anymore.
Well, I mean, you sent me, a decade ago, just over, for 2 weeks on a frigate with the Danish Navy and a photographer, Roderick Eichinger. We worked, we're friends. We spent 2 weeks on this kind of slightly sort of militaristic cruise, really. It wasn't, we captured so many images that with that time, with that space, with that sense of reflection, we got to know everyone. The access we were given because of the relationships was so much deeper. So I think that the time is so important, but the budget you need to apply to that is, incredibly just days upon days adds to that sense of investment. So I wonder, I think people are still doing that, and there are people, these big projects and these wonderful photographers. We work with them every single day. And James Mollison, who shot that piece in Naples, I've worked with him on many stories, the French Foreign Legion piece I did with him. We worked on that story for 2 years. And so I think there is still that commitment, but I think people need to be reminded, and they need to be rewarded with the layouts. You need an epic layout to celebrate those images of certainly the sea, the portraits. And sometimes you just don't feel that people are giving the space, or even the kind of production values that you need to kind of make the image compelling. So I think you're absolutely right. It comes down to the art direction and in the very final analysis, but also the investment in paper.
Indeed, Myriam, just on that, well, not just paper, but your reflections on reportage or grand reportage, maybe.
Yeah, so I mean, this is why I love writing for Confect, because you actually still have the space. And as a writer, I always think the one thing that I owe somebody that I visit or interview or write about or portrait is that I always try to do it as good as I can. You know, it's always a reflection of what it is. And so if I do this, like with the tiny little text and a tiny little picture, but I spend a whole day with somebody, I feel that if I owe something to the other person, then this is that the person, just like any other reader, should be able to open the magazine and sort of see that which is true. And I think, I spend way too much time on my telephone and, in a screen, that I think it's the magazines and the papers that still allow this reportage for me to somehow travel elsewhere without actually going there. And I think paper is even more important because, this is a whole different discussion, but, I'm currently really nursing my neck or curing in my neck because I've been staring on my phone way too much. So give me a magazine. It's much better. It's much better.
I guess it also comes down to who your clients are. And I also think that I hope that the younger generations are going to learn to appreciate the beauty and the slowness that comes with a grand reportage. At home, you can imagine we have a lot of conversations about what a camera crew used to look like when you did television. And we were like 5 or 6 of us going out.
Are your kids bored of that conversation?
So bored. And then everything is a cycle, though. Then it was like, you journalists, film yourself, carry your own tripod, do your own lighting, figure out the sound, and you're a one-man band. So cheap, right?
Yes.
But then, of course, you see the difference. There is a reason why cameramen are trained in photography. Even the lighting man has a training in lighting you up to the best of what effect it's going to have. So it does boil down to who your client is and what your budget is and where you want to prioritize. I love that Confect and Monocle are prioritizing the long story, the slow breathing, especially Confect. But it's also about the bottom line, isn't it?
As well. I know that Emma Nelson's going to have a few comments on this in a moment. Sophie, we're going to let you head out to see. But just if we were to look at the UK papers or anything else, has anything grabbed your attention today, just before we head back for the news?
Well, this is ridiculously sporty for me to even mention, but Arsenal women's have won the Champions League in Barcelona, and everyone's talking about that. My whole family is cheering and joining in this rare moment of kind of celebration for a London team. But I think I might be being reeled into some sort of sporting cult, but that's really the feedback from the Norfolk frontier at this moment.
Sophie, we've been almost, we're coming towards decades of working together. First time I've ever heard you talk about sport.
I know, what's happened?
Anyway, listen, enjoy the North Sea. We're heading down to London from Norfolk right now. Emma Nelson is there with the news headlines.
Thank you very much indeed, Tyler. There's been another night of Russian drone attacks in Ukraine. 12 people have been killed and dozens injured across the country. King Charles will head to Canada this week. He'll aim to reassure the country and its new Prime Minister Mark Carney of the UK's staunch support. Roman police have arrested a German tourist as he cruised down a street on a rented electric scooter with a marble base of a Roman column between his feet. Carabinieri officers spotted the tourist transporting the souvenir along Via Vittorio Veneto near to the Villa Borghese with the base, which weighed about 30 kilos. And a Norwegian man has woken up to find a cargo ship in his backyard. The 135-metre-long vessel ran aground in a fjord in Trondheim, just a few metres from where Johan Hellberg was sleeping. Mr. Hellberg only realised what had happened when his neighbour woke him up and drew his attention to the 10,000-tonne ship that had missed his bedroom by 10 feet. And those are the headlines. Back to you, Tyler, in Zurich.
Okay, Emma, I need to bring you in on the conversation of 5-person camera crews, good lighting, etc. I know you're going to have a comment about this. Of course, the world of television and news production, very core to what happens in your household. And just your reflections on that as well, because it is amazing. I think I'm looking, what do we have on? We have CNN and BBC on here in the studio in Zurich, and you can see when there is still a sense of occasion when they do bring out the lights, and of course they do invest in maybe having a tripod. But there's so many other times as well. You can see that the poor CNN correspondent, there's just something wobbly that they bought at the airport. They whacked their mobile phone on it, and they've got their AirPods in, and they're trying to sort of pass something off that has presence, and yet it all falls apart. So budgets, Emma, or I would say sort of just a creeping sort of sense of laziness or a devaluation of standards?
A little bit of all three. I know from the point of view of someone who has stood in front of an iPhone with using a tripod and stuff in my ears and trying to make sense, that actually it is incredibly difficult to tell a story when you're trying to work out whether your tripod is going to get blown over in the wind. So that will automatically start to degrade the quality of the broadcast that you do, because the concentration is just I think the BBC's a senior figure in the BBC told the BBC News Channel and BBC World a few months ago that she wanted it to look sweaty. And we're not entirely sure what sweaty is, but I have a feeling that you probably would have a few things to say if someone came in and told you that you needed to look sweaty at work.
I'm sort of naturally sweaty anyway, but that's a side topic. But But listen. If we have to translate that, what was that? Was that supposed to mean for if there even was a producer involved, the presenter, the camera? Well, maybe they were operating their own camera, but what does it mean? Is it that it should look urgent or what?
I don't know. I think it's supposed to look urgent, immediate. We're out there. We're down and dirty. Probably we're not being the superior journalist correspondent who's flown in with hair and makeup and lights, but we're actually on the ground doing it. The difficulty is you spend your whole time working so hard trying to look sweaty that you forget actually that you're going to be on the telly. And quite a few people forget that bit, that actually you are the public figure trying to tell a story. And if you look as if you have a touch of responsibility, then you might get there. I mean, camera crews, I was working with the camera crew this week who have, for sort of really simple physical reasons, have ditched their massive camera because it is too darned heavy and it causes huge health problems. But what they've done is they've got a very tiny, lovely camera, but their clients don't believe that it is camera-ish enough. And so, as Juliet was saying, this poor man's had to buy a bigger battery, extra headphones, bigger lights, a massive sort of tripod-y thing, just to make it look as if he's impressive still. So there's this sort of really weird world that people haven't quite worked out what looks professional enough. But so many budgets have been cut that they're trying to get rid of camera crews. They get rid of lighting. I haven't worked with lighting or sound for a very, very long time. And they've ditched drivers, which is what people believe to be a total luxury. But actually, if you're driving around a massive city like London, it was actually cheaper to have a driver paid full time than to take the parking tickets. These are all the things that the logistics of the machine of news is sort of slightly being sort of skewed in the wrong direction.
And is that just because it goes down to not just a procurement department, but the controllers? And I'm not talking controllers in terms of those who are looking after editorial, but controllers who are looking after budgets who have absolutely no sense. They hear driver and they think, oh, expensive, indulgent, etc. So we can just get rid of that, but also not thinking about, yes, you might actually have to set your tripod up, get the interview done. And meanwhile, Jim or Janet is also like trying to drive around and find a parking spot as well. And then you miss the interview.
And indeed. And that is the whole thing. It is what is going to be the most efficient way to do your job properly. And I know that from a fact that sort of within the newsroom direction, within the galleries, there are a few sacred cows where they have a full complement of staff who do different jobs. But in other times, there are moments when people are trying to sort of do absolutely everything to get stuff on air. And this is where problems occur. And they will, for example, if you haven't had the time to look at the pictures that you're going to put on air of a Ukrainian drone attack, or of a Russian drone attack on Ukraine, you are more likely to have inappropriate pictures broadcast because you just haven't had time basically to check if there's the image of a dead person on the pictures, or you don't cross-check that the image of the person that you're putting on the screen is actually the person that you're talking about. And we'll just see these sort of little edges that the fact checkers and the two separate sources and do you have to be an octopus in a television gallery, that they are all putting an enormous amount of pressure, and people will get tired, and then people will make mistakes, and then reputations go, and then that's it.
But AI will be able to look after all of this for us, which is great. There's just a wonderful future for journalism out there. Ladies and gentlemen, I told you that Emma Nelson might have a few views and comments on this. But Emma, just on that, I was thinking back to let's just go back to sort of glory days of news gathering. When I was working for ABC News in London, we used to have 6 crews. We had 6 Volvos. And that was a foreign bureau, based in Fitzrovia. But of course, they had the Volvos as well, because then they could drive out to the airport if they had to then send someone to Addis, if they had to get someone on a plane to Tel Aviv, etc. It was all sorted. And of course, there were 4 people, of course, in that Volvo. You had sound, you had the correspondent, and then, of course, you had camera and producer, camera, sound, lighting potentially as well. And it's amazing where we've sort of ended up. And yet, of course, we do see it on air as well.
We do. I mean, in the wider context of things, I wonder whether there is space for both. So yes, and my goodness, wouldn't it be lovely to drive around London in a Volvo? That would be just bliss. You could sleep on the back seat when you're in a traffic jam. But there is also that advantage to be had for, let's say, you're in Syria, or you can get into Syria for the fall of Bashar al-Assad. You can take your phone, and you can.
Can you take your Volvo to Syria? That's my question.
And back again, and further. Yes, of course you can take your Volvo to Syria. It's probably the only car you can take. But there is time and place for being on the ground and showing things and being present. But at the same time, you just got to know that the Volvo's on the way and that they will do a proper job.
Exactly. We're going to head to Ljubljana in a moment, because I think our Guy De Launey is going to have something to say on this as well. But before that, Myriam, you want to chime in on this topic?
Yes. So when I started working for, my journalistic training, I had it at Schweizer Radio and DRS, at Schweizer Radio and Fernsehen. DRS, it was called back in the days. Now it's SRF.
This is the state broadcast,
exactly.
Ladies and gentlemen, in case you're not tuning in daily.
And when I started, I still had a technician who would edit my tape.
Of course.
Which drove me crazy, because I wanted to do it myself, and eventually I was allowed to do it myself. But I have to say, in retrospect, so many errors or so many things that I thought were obvious and clear, he gave me always such important feedback, to just edge out little mistakes or whatever. So there's also a quality aspect to it that I think is totally lost today.
Guy De Launey, our correspondent in the Balkans, of course, someone wearing many hats, behind microphones, in front of cameras, also with fingers on keyboards as well. You've been listening to this. We don't want to, again, turn this into the state of modern broadcasting and news gathering, but why not, right? But any views on this?
Yeah, quite a lot. I mean, I agree with an awful lot of what Emma was saying, and I'm doing it from a different sort of side of the things, never really being at the main headquarters of a broadcasting or media organisation, but always being an oddity on the periphery, somewhere in orbit. And it's making me think of the days when I was in Cambodia, and to go live on TV from Cambodia 15 or 20 years ago, I needed 3 big heavy bags of kit, which involved a satellite transceiver, full-size camera, full-size tripod, laptop, sound interface, etc., etc. Now I need an iPhone. I need an iPhone, something to get sound back off the iPhone, and something to put sound into it with a microphone. The kit is absolutely tiny, and you do lose in quality, no question about it. But what you gain is, first of all, its cost is an enormous thing now. To be able to go live with just mobile internet, it means the broadcasters are able to do live hits from places they simply wouldn't have been able to afford to do live hits from before. It wouldn't have been a discretionary cost that they could accept, because 10 minutes of satellite time was going to cost them $1,000, and they just weren't going to do it. So now just being able to do it on a 4 or 5G connection is a huge thing. And also being able to carry with you as a one-person band correspondent your broadcasting kit with your TV live kit with you in your kit bag at all times, because there's no marginal cost to having that weight with you. That's an enormous thing. And that means, I think, that we've expanded how we can report and where we can report from, because the marginal costs for the broadcasters are so much lower than they used to be. And that's a big deal.
First, Guy, but is there something to be said, though, for having some sense of presence? Because maybe if I'm a new person in comms, someone shows up with their mobile phone, and maybe they've got their portable Starlink with them, whatever it may be, that passes for okay as long as the questions are right and the organization's good. But I also think there is something to be said for the three bags still, isn't there? And I think what we were also talking about, there is set dressing going on. We could do this program today with probably with one iPhone and we could probably go down to Migros or any sort of grocery store and buy a few mics as well and call it broadcasting. And maybe we don't need all of the heavy kit that we have here in the table that goes up and down and all of these things. But somehow it creates a sense of also presence, doesn't it? That if when you go into a studio and if it's well kit out, you do sit up a little bit or stand up a little bit straight or sit or whatever the case may be, as opposed to when it's all maybe the tools of daily life.
Absolutely. And if I'm going to interview a prime minister or a president, I certainly don't turn up on my phone to do it. It would be, I think, quite apart from anything else, it would be rude. And, secondly, you're right. It just doesn't project the right sort of image. They need to know that this is an occasion as well. And I always make sure that I've got a crew with me when I'm interviewing somebody of that sort of status. And again, of course, you dress accordingly. The whole idea of correspondents should be looking sweaty on air. I mean, that's quite extraordinary. Because I was always given to understand that the important thing is that the correspondent isn't the story. It's the story is the story. You don't want people to be talking among themselves when they're watching you on TV about what a state you look like, the state that your hair's in, the state that your clothes are in. You actually want them to be listening to what you're saying and to the story that is important enough that you're on air talking about it. Don't become the story. That's the rule number one for journalists. So I totally agree that there are times when you absolutely you need those tools that give you authority and the appearance that gives you authority. And I think the issue at the moment with everything surrounding social media, the lack of trust in news that's becoming a real issue for everybody, there's an opportunity for reputable media outlets to say, you can trust us because, and then list the reasons. And, one of the ways in which you project trust is by how you appear. And that comes down to what you wear and the kit that you use. So it's always finding the balance.
And you've noticed that, Juliet, I want to bring you in on this because I know that there's the topic of CNN is always one which is features large probably in your living room at home. But have you noticed just probably even over the last few weeks, I think a memo's gone out maybe under the new leadership of CNN that you don't see ties anymore in studios. I mean, from time to time, but there's just a lot. There's just gentlemen just with open neck shirts. How do you feel about that when we're in studio?
No, we had a conversation about ties when we talked about how Zelensky turned up at the White House,
yes.
Right? And you said he looked like a croupier, whatever. No, I think as this guy was saying, you need to look not respectable, but you need to look believable.
Well, you made an effort.
There is an effort. What?
You made an effort.
Yeah. No, it goes even more than an
effort.
But... No, yeah. So, no, I remember CNN used to have a policy of no facial hair, not for women, for men. And then I'm seeing facial hair a lot as well. Yes, we agree on that one.
Yeah, Myriam, I feel you want to add to this.
No, I have nothing.
She doesn't agree. Facial hair is.
I think you said it right. I mean, I was always thankful for radio because on a Sunday morning, maybe I don't look that believable. But as you said, make an effort. At least, look the way that you cared.
Guy, why don't we, Juliet.
No, I mean, can we talk about hair and makeup and whether there is or there's no budget for that? Because there is a place for that too. And Emma's going to back me up on this, I'm sure. And I remember during the Gulf War when there were a lot of female journalists were embedded with the U.S. Army and they were fighting over who got the shower and who got to do their hair before they had their light shot. It is a thing too to look respectable. You also need, I'm not saying they should have taken a hair and makeup specialist to Iraq, but there is a point where you also just need that extra coiffing that we shouldn't be spending our time doing. We should be focusing on our story.
On the story.
On the news.
And speaking of stories, Guy De Launey, but very quickly, because we've spent much time just talking about the modern state of being able to deliver stories across various channels. Listen, we can go to Belgrade, we can go to Albania. Where do you want to start?
Well, I tell you what, let's start with Albania. Let's start with Belgrade, because it's a sort of a bit of a story behind the story, Tyler. I've been looking at the development in Belgrade at the bombed defence ministry buildings. These were bombed in 1999 during the NATO airstrikes, which eventually forced President Milosevic to withdraw Yugoslav troops from Kosovo, where they were committing atrocities against ethnic Albanians. Now, this has been a very emotive site for more than a quarter of a century. You see it very clearly as you come into Belgrade. One of the first things you see, and you wonder why in a modern city is a bombed out government building on one of the main boulevards. And the way in which the administration is now answering that is to make a deal with Jared Kushner's company, Affinity Global, to redevelop this site as a Trump International Hotel, among other things. And this has obviously raised a lot of hackles within Serbia, because people are saying, well, first of all, it's protected heritage, and it's a site that acts as a memorial for people who died during the 99 bombings. But if you're going to develop it, the last people that you should be doing it with are Jared Kushner and Affinity Global and a Trump hotel. But the twist this week is that it now turns out that one of the documents that was being used to justify this development, to withdraw the protected cultural heritage status from the site, has been forged, and prosecutors have charged the official responsible. And I've been trying to talk to Affinity Global for some weeks, even before this happened. I've been going backwards and forwards with Jared Kushner's business partner. And eventually this week, I just put through a press inquiry to the Affinity Partners website, which has no space for actual text, just your email address. And I got a reply sent to my email address from Ken Curson. And the text said simply, "What's up?" And this is how we do business with people who are associated with the Trump family, it would seem.
Quite remarkable. I just want to rewind quickly. The state of those buildings now, they've just been derelict, or there's been an attempt to reform them anyway, or because obviously you're sort of a bit of an old hand in Belgrade.
Yeah, and I've been inside those buildings, and the funny thing is, part of them is still occupied by Defence Ministry officials. I mean, from the outside, you'd never guess it, but there's a part of those buildings which was not destroyed by the bombings, and has been occupied by Defence Ministry officials for the past couple of decades. But what's happened in the past 25 years, they've been shoring the buildings up to stop them collapsing further, because they are architecturally significant, designed by Nikola Dobrovic, who's significant enough to have been in an exhibition at the Museum of Modern Art in New York celebrating Yugoslav architecture. And the whole way the site was designed, it was designed to welcome people to Belgrade as a sort of gateway coming up from the main railway station. So that's what's been happening over the past 25 years. But of course, there's been a lot of debate. Is this the image we want for our capital city in Serbia? It's more or less saying we're still in a bit of a state after Milosevic, after 99. It's not saying that we're over it.
Guy, just quickly, because I'm not going to have time for everything, I just want to maybe just jump in on another story, which when you talk about things being in a bit of a state, and maybe we can jump over the border from Slovenia to Croatia, and that is Croatia Airlines as well. You brought the story up. I was looking at results. They've got new aircraft inbound, but they certainly can't balance the books either, from what I've been noticing, which is remarkable when you think about, okay, yes, you've got a lot of low-cost carriers coming into the country. Mm-hmm. Here you have a very small flag carrier, but it's moment right now. It's coming into its big season. What's the problem?
Well, the problem with Croatia Airlines is just not being able to make it business-wise in a way that's sustainable. It's lost 15 million euros in the most recent quarter, and it's bringing in a new fleet. It's transitioning to the 220s. It's going to be its new fleet. It's had a lot of the turboprop, I think is the Dashers it's been using, which are actually quite nice to fly on. But, there's been an issue with it. It's a legacy carrier. It's still owned by the state. We know how those sort of things go. No other airline in the region has managed to survive in that way, unless you count Air Serbia, which has transitioned from YAT, but that was managed by Etihad for quite a number of years. Over the border here in Slovenia, Adria Airways didn't quite make it into the COVID relief money times. That went pop back at the end of 2019. now you've got basically Ljubljana Airport, which has been expanded and is empty because it doesn't have an airline, and Croatia Airlines, who have got losing money hand over fist, and more importantly, not able to compete with Ryanair, which has established a base in Zagreb and is now the number one in Croatia. Now are we going to have this flailing airline and an empty airport? Is that going to be some sort of marriage made in heaven? Are we basically going to see Croatia Airlines taking over Ljubljana Airport? That would be quite something to see.
Yeah, we'd see more of you for sure. Guy De Launey, our man in the Balkans, thanks very much for that. We're going to be talking about the Kreislauf here in Zurich in a moment, but just very quickly, Myriam, you had a little sort of thought. You sort of put your hand up earlier about affinity to airlines and what makes you want to fly. But just tell us quickly in 30 seconds or less, because we want to talk shopping in Zurich on a Sunday as well.
Well, what I realized when we were also talking on the Portugal evening on Friday, we were talking about what makes an airline and what makes you fly an airline. I realized I'm so loyal to my airline because of the chocolate and the Kombly at the end of the day. So I have been loyal to my airline, even though the prices are way too high.
Yes.
For the last 25 years.
So okay, so it's just it's
home.
It's going to be croissants with hotels. It's the
I know.
It's the chocolate on board Swiss as well. I get it. Listen, we were talking, of course, at the start of the program that this is a bit of an interesting day for us in Zurich because, of course, in the run up to Christmas, we're able to shop on a couple of Sundays. But here we have another moment this weekend as well, and a very fine piece of print. Which is great. Nina Lusli is here because this is the Kreislauf, and we're talking about three districts in Zurich: District 3, District 4, District 5. For our listeners, you could say maybe this slightly what has been traditionally the more edgier part of town, but also becoming a bit more gentrified as too. People wouldn't want to hear that, but that's the truth, I guess. But just tell us a little bit about the idea and this Kreislauf, this run around the district. And guten Morgen, good morning, by the way.
Good morning. Hi. Thank you for having me here. So Kreislauf is already 18 years we're doing this. So I'm not doing it that long yet. So I actually started this year. It was my friend Juliet. She took over Kreislauf in 2020. But the whole, I don't know what's the word verein in English.
It's an association.
Like a clubish club sort of, yeah.
So that's already 18 years. And we started with just Kreis 3 and 4. 4 and 5. And Kreis 3 came 5 years ago because the whole shops are getting bigger and the whole district is getting more popular. So, and the idea is just to support small shops away from the whole mainstream, the whole fast fashion, and to support small, local and slow shops because it's hard for them to compete to the big mainstream, the whole Bahnhofstrasse. And so the interesting thing is in the city we have 4 Sunday Sonntagsverkaufs.
Yeah, Sunday shopping day listeners. Yeah.
Because in Switzerland everything's closed on Sunday. So usually the big stores have them around Christmas, Christmas shopping. And we're really lucky that we always get this one in May. And they're not always too happy because the Bahnhofstrasse, for them, it's not interesting to open today because you need to do whole marketing
and the
everything.
Staff and everything, yeah.
Yes. So we're really happy that the city's really supporting us and giving us this Sunday, and it's really amazing and it's really nice. I mean, yesterday was the whole day, just walk through the whole districts. We always have a color code. This year it's pink, so everybody has their pink balloons, and it was so nice yesterday just walking around and seeing the people shopping. And talking about print, I saw so many people walking around with these big maps where we all have the shops.
Does it exist digitally as well?
Yes,
it does,
of course.
But I have to say, this is what you can't do. We were talking about before you went on air. This, Myriam, you've got this vast expanse of paper open, and it's just so easy to decode and understand right away because it's very hard to do a map on a phone to orientate yourself, but then to see all of these amazing independent retailers as well. Is there sort of a view, because obviously it sort of exists in a way all year round, this happens, but that this sort of Kreislauf, any law being that there should be more Sundays, that this should happen across the year, Nina?
That's an interesting question. We were talking about that yesterday, and we were sure you're going to ask this question. But we would say like 6 would be nice, but like not more, because it's still like shops, and we think Sunday is good for like, because they're small businesses with families and lots of women doing them, so we want not that every Sunday is open, but we would think 6 would be nice from the city.
Yeah, that would be great to sort of lobby for. Just very quickly, have you done a spin around, or is it going to happen today?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, so I live in Kreis 5, and I loved it. There was just a cheerful sort of melody in the whole quartier, and they were having, little aperos outside of the, people were gathering and talking. I loved it. And I myself have discovered 2 new shops that I've never been to. So
Are they food shops?
No, books and fashion.
Yeah, I saw also bookshop is here, which I did know about as well. So then people can show up if they're flying into Zurich. They're in Zurich today. They can. You're there till.
Yeah, we're open from 11. That's going to be now, until 5. And like you already said, there's specials. You can go clean your bikes. You can go.
Wow.
There's some readings in the bookstores. You get. Free food and free popcorn and whatever. Excellent.
Nina Lucy, thank you very much for coming in on this. Myriam Zumbühl, wonderful to see you. Juliet, always. I mean, you've been here sort of so many weeks in the talk. Of course, having Desi, of course, managing the program as well. Also, thanks to Sophie Grove, who is up in Norfolk for us today. Also, Guy De Launey in Slovenia. And, of course, our producers, Emma Nelson back in London. And also Elliot Greenfield. I'm Tyler Brûlé. I'm going to be joining you from Lisbon next week. It's Design Week there, their own Kreislauf. Speak to you then. Bye-bye.